Okay, so we have already seen how to work with files, right? And we have seen working with text and CSV file before. Today we'll see how to work with JSON file. Okay. Now, before we talk about JSON file, I mean, how to work with JSON file using Python, let's understand what JSON file is, right? How do JSON file work? So JSON file, if you see, let me probably open a browser and talk about it. Okay, to understand how JSON files are. So let me share my screen. Let's say I say JSON file. Okay. So if you look at JSON file format, okay, let's look at, yeah. So if you see this, okay, this is the one. Can you read this?
Yeah.
Okay, so you see this? This is very much similar to our dictionary, correct? So this is the popular file format. Okay, okay, this is popular file format. In a way, you have a lot of data transfer that is happening currently using JSON file format. So in a networking tool, let's say if you have to read some data from a machine, let's say, your network device gives you some kind of log files and things like that. They will either be in CSV, and more newer files, they'll have it in JSON file format. So that's why I said this is very important, okay, from practical perspective. And if you see, this is how a data file is. So if you see here, you have a curly bracket in the beginning, and you'll have a curly bracket at the end. Okay, so if you remember our dictionary data is also in same format, right? You have a curly bracket in the beginning and curly bracket at the end. So you have the same format, and then the data is within that. Now, if you see here, so if you remember your dictionary, you have key colon value. In a way, if you see this, users is like a key, isn't it? Users is within your double quotation. So it's like a string, okay? And you have key colon value. Now value, if there is a multiple values, you put a list. Same thing here, you see, the square bracket that you see is like list, isn't it? So it says user ID, and there are, no, that's, okay, users, right? So users, there are multiple users. So you have users, and then the value is in a list. This entire thing is value in a list. And then you have each user ID here. So user ID, user ID, user ID here. Okay. So it becomes easy for Python to read this data. It becomes easy for Python to read this data. So if I have to create our own JSON file format, let's try to do it. So we'll try to create maybe, cricketers list or something. So if you see, remember, your data is represented as a curly bracket, right? And inside this, you might say players. Players, since it's a text, so I'm saying players, colon, you can have multiple players, right? So this is the data. Now I can say here, okay, so this is again your list values, right? Now in list again, you have, okay, in list again, you have, like multiple values. So this entire thing is one value, one list. And inside that, again, you have multiple values, right? So multiple values. So you can have one value here, okay? And you have to put comma here, okay? When you're putting multiple values. So if you see here, this is your one value, and then another value you put. So this will be our second player data. Okay, this will be our third player data. And this will be our fourth player data, right? And let's say if you don't want to add any more data, then no need to put comma here. So, and see, if you are the amount of data you're putting here should be same as the data that you'll put in second, right? So here, let's say I'm putting data like name, right? Name, and then name will have Rohit, let's say. So key colon value, comma, key colon value, then key colon value, right? So the data should be similar in nature. Okay, when you are adding multiple data, this is one set of data. So when you add the second set of data, it should be similar in nature. Okay. It should be similar in nature. That means the key should be same, right? That's what we said, right? Your key should be same, right? So let's say you have Rohit here. Now here I'll put, say, Siraj. Okay, and I'll say baller. And city is Hyderabad, right? Then here, let's say you have Virat. Batsman, Delhi. Then here you might have bowler, okay. So, so this is how your JSON file format is written, isn't it? So you have every data should be within curly bracket. It should begin with curly brackets. And then we have one data called players. Now you can have something similar here also if you want to have one more set of values. Okay, so this is player data. Let's say you want to have some other set of data. So you can put comma, and then you can put one more set of data. So data is always represented as key and value. So this is your file, JSON file format. Okay. Now what I'll do, JSON file is written as some, like .json. So what I will do here, I leave it here. I'm not going to, work with this. Why? Because we need to save this as JSON. So I will write a program to create a JSON file with this information, and then we will read it. So this is a JSON file format. Now, to work with JSON file format, you need to import JSON. You need to import JSON. Okay. Now, we will write a JSON file format. Okay, we'll write to a file. So see here, we are going to learn 4 things here. Okay, dump s. Sorry, JSON is the package that we're going to use. Dumps, load, loads. Okay, now this is how I remember. See, dump means dumping to a file. So here you don't use write or writer. Okay, we use writer in CSV, we used write in text. We use dump. If you want to write something to a file, we say dump. If you want to read something from a file, we say load. Okay, so you have dump and load. Now, if you are reading from a file and printing onto the screen, okay, onto the screen, then you say dumps. Okay, this is how I remember. Dump and dumps, both are for writing. Dumps, S stand for screen. It doesn't stand for screen, but no, I have made it like this so that I'll remember when to use what. Dumps to write onto the screen. So if you want to write to the screen, if you want to print to the screen, okay, you will say dumps. If you want to read data from the screen, you will say loads. Okay, if you're loading the data or reading the data from a file, you will say load. Okay, and when you're writing to a file, you will say dump. Dump, dumps. Load, loads. Right? Okay. So now let's see an example of how we'll see example of all, like, each one of these, right? So we'll write to a file. Okay, so let's write to a file. So simple, right? This entire thing I'm going to copy, and I'm going to say here, I can put it here itself. Players data equal to this. Now this is not going to throw error because this is a this is a file format, or sorry, this is a dictionary format for in Python, right? So this is going to work. Now if you see, this data is written as a dictionary, and if you want to write to a file, then we have to open the file, isn't it? So I'm going to say write to a file. So I'm going to say file ptr equal to open file name. So file name, we will use same folder test1, and I'm going to say data1.json. Okay, I'm going to write in data1.json, and then it's a write mode, right? So we'll put it in W. We'll say write mode. Okay, done. Now to dump, okay, we have JSON, right? So you have JSON dot dump. See, you have dumps and dump. We are going to use dump because we're writing to a file. Dump, and you need to indicate what data you want to write. Okay, what did we say? Data one we said, right? Players data we said, right? So I'm going to say players data. So this is the data I want to write, but which file? Okay, so file ptr. And then you close the file, right? File ptr dot close. Okay, so I've written a temporary, written a sample JSON file here. Okay, and I'm dumping to a file. So P18, PY18, run PY18, no error. Now you see here, data1 JSON is created. When you open it, you see data is written like this. Now, if you see, data is written all in a single line. We had created a very good looking template, right? And this is how actually JSON template will look like, so that you can actually see which level. Okay, so players data, players is at parent level, and this is at second level, right? So name is below name, right? This looks good rather than putting everything like this here. So there is an option here, okay, called as when you dump, okay, here you can say indent. Okay, so you want to have indent, you say indent. And how much space should you give? By default, indentation is 4 characters, right? So you can say 4 characters. Okay, why there's an error here? Okay, so all these, remember, these are your what do you call required, right? So this should, when you have keyword, and this keyword should be written later. Okay, let's see if this works. Yeah, and then when you go and click on this, so see, it is now put it in the same looking format that we had. So you can decide how much indentation you want to give. So if you have a data in your Python, okay, you can dump it to a file. You can create a dictionary and you can simply dump to a file. You want to dump it to the screen? You want to print it to the screen? Then what do? You do JSON.dumps, right? You say JSON.dumps. Correct? Okay. So it says dumps takes one position argument, but two position argument is given. In dumps, we don't have to give file pointer, right? It doesn't, it's going to put it on the screen, not, we don't have to put it in a file. Okay. So JSON.dumps. Okay. Now, if you want this to be displayed onto the screen, you put them inside a print here. Now you see data is displayed onto your screen. Yeah. So far we have seen how to create a JSON file, right? How to create and how to read a JSON file. This is also important. And then we saw how to add to a file, write to a file using dump and display onto your screen using dumps, right? So dumps is like making it ready to display. But of course, to print it onto the screen, you have to use print. Okay, so print dumps will display it onto the screen. Now, indentation will make the indentation. Otherwise, if you don't provide, it will have indentation 0. So everything will start from, everything will be in same, this thing, right? So, same line, right? Now, there is one more important here, okay, which is called as sort keys. Okay, which is called as sort keys. That means the keys that you see, okay, they are also called as keys. Okay, so if you see like player, name, type, okay, city, they are called as keys. So you can have one more option which you can have in dump also and dumps also, called as sort keys. And if I say true, okay, and sort key is equal to true, and when you run it, so you see the keys are sorted. C and T, they are at same level, correct? So you see, C comes first, N comes next, T comes. Even though we gave name and T and C and TC, it printed C and T because C comes first, then comes N, and T comes last, right? Alphabetical order. So you can even sort this. You can even sort this. So this is how you use dumps. So dump is to write to a file. If you want to create a JSON file, you will say dumps. And when you want to read, you will say dumps. Make sense? And also you understand, okay, that like mostly, okay, and this is based on what I have seen, mostly you will be doing the reading, right? You will be reading a JSON file from file and extracting information, okay? So you want to know what time system failed. So there is a key called failure, and then it will have a date or time. You want to read that date and time, okay? So mostly it will be read. So let's see how to perform read operation here. So for read, we'll have to say load and loads, isn't it? Now, let's say we have this file itself, which one, data1.json. And let's say you want to read the data from data1.json. Okay, then how do we do that? So, okay, so we'll open this file. Okay, reading a JSON file. So you will say file open, and here instead of W, you will say W plus also you can do, right? Okay, let's use W plus. Okay, and we'll see what happens when you use W plus. Okay, so I have said W plus. Okay, and this is your file pointer, and of course you need to close it later, right? So let's write the close code here. Now we have to say load, JSON dot load. So see, the difference between load and loads is that load will take file pointer, because loads needs to know which file you are loading the data from, or which file you want to use for your reading the data, right? So that's why load and dump will have the first here file pointer, not first value, but file pointer. Okay, so in load you have first, and in write you have second, right? File pointer, because you want to read this file. So I want to load, and I want to load, okay, which data? Okay, so I want to load from file pointer, isn't it? So I'll say file pointer. Okay, now this will give you the content, right? So I'm going to say here something like, let's say JSON content equal to JSON.load. So it has read from the file. And now when you say print JSON content, okay, oops, sorry, which line? 39. JSON.load. Okay, now, okay, now here if I put it in R mode, so what happened here? Since I said write mode, the old data is deleted. You see that? Okay, because we open in W plus mode, write and read. So you can read it, but it has performed write first. So all the content is deleted, right? So if I go and put RAR mode, now when I run it, okay, so see, you're able to load the data here from the file. Okay, so if you open it, now the data is here, because we are open in read mode, the data is safely there, right? And in okay, and load has given us onto the screen. Makes sense? So this is how you use load. Now, if I have to say, now this is your load, right? You are reading from data. So what I'll do, okay, I will take this content, okay, or let it be. Okay, this is the JSON content, isn't it? Now I'm going to say here, JSON content 2, let's say, equal to JSON dot loads. Loads means I'm reading from the screen the data, okay, which is your JSON content data. Loads, okay, and here I will say JSON content. Okay, the beauty of this is, now when I say print JSON content 2, okay, there is an error here, right? JSON content 2, let's say JSON content 2, and here I will, yeah, okay. So the thing here is, okay, loads actually read loads, actually reads data from the screen, right? So data will be in a string format, not as a JSON format. Okay, so JSON format, you won't be there. So what I was trying to do was earlier, I was trying to copy this stuff and I will say here JSON text or something like this. Okay, equal to, let me put triple bracket and inside this I'm putting this. Okay, so I have put, as a string. Now you read this, not the JSON content, but a text content. Now still there's an error. Why this error? Now let me see which line is giving error. 44. Okay, JSON dot loads JSON dot loads, right? Spelling is correct, right? Okay, so I'm putting this in code. That's why it says, right? Expecting property name enclosed in double quotes. So I will have very less data. Okay, we don't have to put, it's to save time. Okay, let's, okay, Hyderabad. So Mumbai is also should be in double quote. No, still error. Delimiter. Column line number 1, column 126. So this is player. Okay. So this is the closing thing. And okay, yeah. So I think we have an extra bracket here. Yeah. So see, you get same output. But this S is used to read from the screen when you have data in string format. So when you have a string and the string has JSON data, you will use load S, loads. Okay. So this is how we read. Now, if you want to process something, okay, you don't want to print entire stuff. Okay. So I want to print only here. I want to print, say, players, right? So you can say this as players, right? Okay, so see, player is gone, you have name here. Now I can say here name, key, basically, you're talking about key. Okay, now what happened when you said name? Because there are two names here. Okay, so it doesn't know which name to pick for. So you will say player. Okay, now players, okay, of 0, right? Now if I use players here, so see this entire, see this again takes us back to our working of those list and dictionary. This is a dictionary. Dictionary data is in list format. Data is in list format. So if I go and say 0 here, See, players, entire thing you will get. But if I say 0, I will get only this. Right? So you got only this. So you can have 0, 1. If you want Sira's data, you will say 1. So you get Sira's data. Here you want name. Okay? So you get Sira's, right? So this is how you'll be able to access each data. I want you to print all the names only. I want you to print all the names. Then what do? We will say for I, okay. Anyway, this content is done, so you can put it outside the file also, but let's do it here. So for I in, okay, this, because this is a list, right? Players will give you a list. For I in, now I will say print, right? Instead of 1, I will say I. So hopefully, first I should be 0. Okay. So this is getting entire stuff. Sorry. This is getting entire stuff, right? So one option is I is going to be this entire thing, right? So you can say I of name, correct? You should see I of name, right? So see Rohit and Siras. I is the inner part, right? This part. So from this one, I want name. So I will say I of name, right? So you'll be able to get each value using this. Sounds good? With that, we complete our JSON discussion also now.